What had happened, my husband was a branch manager of a bank here in our town, and all of a sudden people come in and he is arrested. I happened to be in the building that day, so I knew exactly what happened at that time. We went through the whole process when you're arrested, which was totally bogus to us. We had no idea about all that except what we'd seen on TV. Came down to a trial, which Don talked about. Now, I had been a court reporter for the district court for many years, and then on the Second Circuit Court of Appeal, I was very familiar with courtrooms and attorneys, and so I was kind of in my element. I wasn't surprised about any of that. What surprised me is that through the whole process, Don was arrested and no charges were ever brought against him. You cannot do that legally. Even our attorney, who is one of the best, or the best in the state, I knew him personally, could not get anything from the government what the charges, the legal charges were against this man. Up until the morning of the trial, they handed him a document. Mr. Gravel called me forward. He knew my experience in legal work, and he said, "This is what it is. They have taken one line out of one paragraph of a banking regulation, and it's out of context, and they know," the reason they didn't give it to me is they know that these regs are only in Washington, D.C. Anyway, he hands me this and he says, "See what you can do." Because he said, it takes forever to get these things. I take the file, I walk out into the hallway, not knowing what on earth how I was going to do this. And Don mentioned about something taking care of us. And we've always felt that way. Bad things have happened to us many times, but we're always taken care of. And this is what happened to me. I had never been in the federal courthouse building, but when I walked into that hall, there was one man coming down the hall, and he happened to be the president of the Louisiana State Bar Association, a man I knew, not close, but I knew him. I knew all the attorneys in town. And he said, "Grace, what are you doing here?" And I told him that my husband was in there on trial, and he said, "That's with Camille." I go, "Yeah, that's our attorney." And he said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, "I sure do. Let me show you." And he looked at it and he said, "Come with me." We walked into a conference room. He picked up the phone, called his office, which was a huge amount of attorneys that worked for this man. And he told them, "Tell everybody, stop what you're doing right now and get on the horn to Washington. I want this whole banking regulation by 10 o'clock in the morning." They did. The next morning we walk into the courtroom. Within a few minutes, Lukey Smith walks in and he hands me a folder. He said, "I got it." I walked over and handed it to Mr. Gravel, and that was proof. When the whole paragraph was read, there had been no law broken. He was innocent. That was a huge thing. And that also explains why they didn't even bother to put it in evidence. There was nothing against the man. I had worked for Camille Gravel once in my life when I was a young woman, and I knew he was one of the best in the nation. And all these things coming together protected us. When I walked in that courtroom that first day and the door shut, I felt like we'd had a bubble of protection on us. I don't know where it came from. You can call it God, you can call it Supreme Being, you can call it the universe, you can call it anything you want to. But I do believe in that. And I know that there were a lot of prayers going up for people who believe in prayer. I even know that in a small town in the Appalachian Mountains, there was a church. My mother had grown up in this little church, And the members of that little church in the mountains met that day for a day of prayer for our help. And I firmly believe the help came from wherever help comes from. And so it ended, and we struggled on with our life because it had taken everything we could borrow, everything we had, to pay the expenses and try to keep alive. Our children had all worked all through high school, all through college, and were all working at this time. We were hard-working people, so we found jobs, go to work, let's pay this debt off. A few months later, we get another call from our attorney. The government wasn't through with us. One of the banking establishments overseen by the government had decided to go further for other people, and I guess they were trying to get into the board of directors through us some way. And we had to have a meeting down in Baton Rouge with the board of directors and us, my husband. And so, of course, we had to hire an attorney again, which took the last few pennies we had, but that's okay. And we go to Baton Rouge, and in this meeting, they go on and all the legal mumbo jumbo, and there are board members sitting around this table from the bank, and me and my husband, and it just doesn't make any sense. And it finally it boils down to they had files they kept handing, doing in the air. And one of the board members was actually president of the university here in town at the time, and he was there. And he said, "Do you mind if I see some of those files?" And he looked at them and he said, "There's only 2 or 3 pages in these files. Some of them didn't even have an application." And he said, these were never submitted to the board for approval for loans because, there's no information in them. And they said, "That's what we were given." Well, no wonder you have a problem. There's no information in them. So many people had gone through these files, including an ex-district attorney, we found out, that papers had just disappeared. We don't know why, where. And then they asked Don something, and he got emotional. He could not talk. And I had been listening to this, and I finally figured out what it was all about. And I said, the whole point of this, you people seem to think that Don was doing something wrong when he submitted loan applications to the board of directors. And they said, that's right. He submitted bad loan applications to the board. And I said, that was impossible because he was a branch manager. He had no authority to ever go to a board meeting, had never set foot in a board meeting. There was a man whose job it was in that bank to do this, and that's what he did. He went over every loan and took it personally, walked into the boardroom and submitted it to the bank, the board of directors. And they were stunned. That was the whole premise of what they were after this time. And they said, "We've made a mistake." There was a lady there, and she stood up and she said, "We've made a mistake. We've been talking to the wrong man." They went after the wrong man for the wrong reason, without having information. There might have been a personality clash between Don and this man. Who knows? He might have wanted his job. Who knows? But it happened, and they dismissed us, and we walked out into the hall, and this lady came up to us and she said to us, she says, "Mr. Hudnall, we owe you a huge apology for what has happened to you." I don't know who she was, if she was FBI, RTC, I don't know what she really was, but she apologized, but it didn't make it all right. seems to be hurting us as a people. And all we can do is the best we can do and try to take care of yourselves and your family and live a good life and do the right thing. And that's all we can do. Thank you.